Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to just share my testimony, my experience, and the results of giving my garden areas a sabbatical rest for a year. So that was in 2024 that I chose to do that after much consideration. And a lot of you may be wondering why. Well, there's several reasons why. One, simply knowing that trying to do all the stuff I do, even though we have 2 other pieces of property, I still try to do all my gardening and all that kind of, raising food on this little shy 1/3 acre piece in a neighborhood as much as I can. However, that does have its challenges, especially if you're wanting to try to grow food every year. Now, like with some people, they might have areas where they give their sections of land a rest and rotate their crops. Well, that's great when you have a lot of land to work with, but not all of us do. And like I said, though we have 2 other pieces of property, they're not massive. We could do more there than we do. But for the time being, I still want to try to make the most of what I can do right here because it's just so much easier than always having to drive over to these other places to take care of my garden areas. So knowing that it can be a good practice to allow garden areas to lie fallow for a year, I decided to go to scripture. Now, for those of you who don't believe, I hope that you'll hang in here because this isn't all just supposed to be about my faith and what I've learned, but I'm hoping that by sharing what I've learned and what I've done, it can at least give you some food for thought. Whether you're a believer or not, whether you believe in the Bible or not, doesn't matter. It might be something to consider, especially when you're trying to do as much as you can in a small location. So I mostly just want to share with you what I've learned. But with that said, I do still need to start off with some scripture so you can understand where I got my idea to do what I did last year's garden season. So this is in Leviticus 25, and I'm going to read verses 2-7 and then verses 20-22, where it speaks specifically of resting the land. And I do know that a lot of people believe this only refers to the promised land. But I always think, well, God had a reason why he set things up a certain way, and that was for the benefit of the people and for the land. So wouldn't it be good practice just to try it for ourselves, no matter where we're at? So I'm going to go ahead and read these, and I'll also post the scriptures on the screen. Speak to the children of Israel and say unto them, when you come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath to the Lord. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest, thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall be meat for you, for thee, and for thy servant, for thy maid, and for thy hired servant, and for thy stranger that sojourneth with thee, and for thy cattle, and the beasts that are in thy land, shall all increase thereof be meat. So in case that might be a little bit difficult to understand, I mean, if you just, without kind of reading everything within context, within the whole book and books of the Bible, that might be difficult to understand what this means. It's like, wait a minute, we can't eat of the things that come up of themselves, but then it says we can. No, what it's saying is that, those things that come up of their own. So maybe seed that's fallen from your annuals or your perennials, your fruit trees, your berries, your herbs, you can eat off of those during the Sabbath rest. You're not supposed to reap it. So there is a difference, but you just let it grow, eat what you can, let the wild animals, your own animals or whatever, eat what they can. And I believe there's another scripture, I know there's scriptures that talk about when you do reap in those years by leaving some for the poor. And so I took all these kind of things into consideration, and I'll get to that in a minute. But let me read the next 3 verses, because it talks about the years of Jubilee and all that in between. Then it comes back to this Sabbath land rest in verse 20. And if ye say, what shall we eat in the 7th year? Behold, we shall not sow nor gather in our increase. See that there's kind of the clarifying statement there. You're not gathering in your increase and all your extra. You're just eating, using what you can at the moment. Verse 21, then I will command my blessing upon you in the 6th year, and it shall bring forth fruit for 3 years. And ye shall sow in the 8th year, and eat of the old fruit until the 9th year, until her fruits come in, ye shall eat of the old store. And when I read that, I thought, whether people are Bible believers or not, Christians or not, or even if they believe the Bible but don't think they have to keep the old law, this is still great lessons to learn, especially for those people who are gardeners, farmers, and those who like to be prepared for whatever life may throw their way. So I started thinking, wow, there's a lot in this. This means first and foremost that by making this decision, I got to take a step of faith. And my first thought was, well, since not all of my garden areas are 6 years old, maybe I'll just grow in the things that are new and then just rest all the older garden areas. And then I realized that, well, that's not really a step of faith, for one, and 2, that's going to really confuse me down the road. If this is something I want to get in the habit of doing every 7 years, then I want to be able to rest all of them. That means even the potted plants as well. And the other thing was, I knew it would also be a lesson, not only in my faith and trusting God, but also in just like when you have a power outage or something happens, and it gives you a chance to kind of test, what is your preparedness level at? How prepared are you for not being able to, maybe something will happen and you lose all your crops. Am I prepared? Do I have enough food put up to get us through not being able to get in what we'd normally get in a good year? That I knew was important to do, if nothing else, for the sake of a lesson. And so that I could watch my garden areas and learn from the whole experience. So the next step then was, well, I didn't start any annual seeds, no tomatoes, no beans, a couple of my favorite things to grow, and pumpkins. None of that did I grow. Obviously, I still had my apples, but the apples only got used as they were coming in and used immediately. They weren't something that I put up. I didn't dehydrate them. Like this year, I put up a bunch of apples in the form of dehydrated and putting up apple pie mixes and apple butter. I even did a little bit of apple juice, and I might still do more because the time I'm shooting this, it's late September. So I may still decide to make some apple cider with the rest of the apples that are coming in, because there's a lot. So yeah, I was using the things that were coming in as they were coming in, but not preserving anything. I wasn't dehydrating or canning. So as you can see here, this is actually the juice from grapes from previous years that I was trying to make room, because right now I'm in the process of harvesting my grapes for 2025. And I like to freeze them because it makes them easier to juice for just canning juice or making homemade wine. So that's what I did with some of those, and the rest I went ahead and canned up the gallons of grapes I was taking out of the freezer. And right here you'll see 6 half gallons of apple vinegar going. Though I dehydrated up a lot of the peels this year, I did turn a lot of the peels and cores into vinegar as well. All the things like making the apple butter, the pies and whatnot. And then the pumpkins, this is just 5 of the 11 pumpkins. My pumpkins did pretty good this year. But at any rate, obviously I wasn't doing all of this stuff. I might have got some vinegar started last year as I was using the apples to make pies, because I was making fresh apple pies, straight from the tree apple pies. I was doing that. But the other things that we would do is just simply, I felt like, since this is part of the faith, leaving a lot of stuff just for the wild birds, letting stuff fall, like the chickens, they love my grapes. I even just would throw a bunch down to the chickens. And the wild birds would eat the apples on the tree, the grapes, the berries, and so on. So that's mostly what I did with what I couldn't use immediately. Did the same thing with the herbs. I wasn't making tinctures. Because I had plenty of dried herbs put up I could do that with. But I was using them immediately and fresh in teas. I was not dehydrating them for teas and tinctures and whatnot, because that would be putting them up and having to harvest a lot. I would just go pick enough to put in a pot and make some tea. So like if it's peppermint or lemon balm, there was also a lot of the apples and grapes that I gave away to people who could use them. So to me, that was my way of just kind of paying back to others, of maybe paying a tithe, as you might say, or helping out those people who are more in need just by giving away some of this excess. Now, I had a lot of people telling me who've already been practicing this, or know others that have been, like giving their gardens, their land, a rest every 7 years, that say, oh, you're going to be so pleased with your garden the next year. You're going to get so much. It's going to do so amazingly well. And I was like, well, that would be nice, but that wasn't why I was doing it. And to be in all honesty, while some things did better than usual, like I got a little more pumpkins this year than I normally get out of my small little pumpkin patch. And that was cool to get 11. In fact, there's still 2 more out there that are really small. They came on really late, but those will still be cool to bring in. My apple trees didn't put out more apples than they normally do, but I don't need more apples than that. I got plenty. My strawberries seem to do a little better this year. And let's see, what else? I did plant the einkorn and was pleasantly surprised. I just did a small little patch of it just to see if it would grow. And so this year was also about my gardening experience this year was more about just trying new things. It wasn't so much me expecting to get more out of what I had. My beans did pretty much the same as usual, though a lot of things came in much later. My tomatoes, beans, peas, everything took so much longer to really start taking off because we had such a cold season. But you know what? I still got more than I needed of any of these things. And I'm happy with that. And then there were some things that just didn't do great at all, which was like my zucchini really did not do near as well as it normally does. But guess what? Even then, I still got more zucchini than I needed to get put up. And I was still able to give some away, even though I really didn't get much by comparison. So yes, there were some things that did better, some things that didn't do so great. Some things I learned simply by trying something different and realizing either, oh, that's cool, that worked, or that wasn't such a great idea. Like trying out the einkorn, that was a great experiment. Trying to plant my corn a little bit differently was not. And it's made me realize the importance of when you're sowing your field, about how they talk about not mingling the seed. And my personal opinion is that is more in reference to those annuals that you're going to plant, like your grains, your corn, your wheat, your barley, to not mingle them up. And that became really clear this last year when I was growing the corn and decided, normally I bunch it all together in one small spot and it does pretty good. But this year I spread it out and planted sunflowers between them all and allowed the borage to grow amongst it all. And what happened was a lot of my corn got too shaded out and it just didn't grow. On top of the fact that it was a cold year, so it did not grow as quickly as it normally would. I'm colder than normal. It's cold and wet here anyway, so corn doesn't grow extremely fast here in the first place. But I made it even worse by doing that. But by planting the corn and keeping it all together, it does really good because it supports each other. It's not surrounded by plants that grow up faster and then quickly shade it out. So I learned a lesson from that. And that is something that people can apply all the way across the board. Don't be afraid to experiment and try something to see. I'm just curious to see how this will work. If it's a failure, well, guess what? You learned something. If it's a success, you still learn something. And at least now you know. And that made me want to be, at least when it comes to my annuals, like my corn, my beans, my peas. Well, my beans and peas, they all have their own special places I grow them anyway. But a lot of these things, to not mix them together, they're going to do better if they can grow in patches by themselves. There's a lot of talk about companion planting, which I believe wholeheartedly in, but I do think there's got to be a certain amount there are certain things that are simply going to do best if not mingled with a bunch of other things. And so I did learn that lesson for sure this year. I also got a better idea of the kinds of things that can grow in my garden. I was able to watch, and just since I didn't do anything with my garden areas last year, I was able to see what kind of things came up naturally that were just wild things, such as the heel-all that came up. And this year got even more of it and was thrilled because I hadn't had a chance to really even learn what that was. I realized I've seen it come up on my garden before, but kept pulling it up because I didn't know what it was at the time. But this time I was able to let it grow and really watch it and learn about it, in 2024, that is. And so then in 2025, was able to get a better idea, where is this growing best? Where do I want it to grow? Where it's not going to take over everything, but also where I can get a good amount of this. So it's little things like that I was able to learn more about by simply taking that garden rest, just watching how things grow, so that when I go into my next years, I'll have a better idea what to plant, how to plant, and where to plant. Just like with my potatoes, I became more clear at which potatoes like which area best. The red potatoes like it out front best, where the yellow potatoes like it in the pumpkin patch area best, because I grow the pumpkins along the side of an arched cattle panel, and then plant the potatoes in the middle section where there'd be nothing going on, and then a couple other key areas that the yellow potatoes love, but they don't seem to like it as much in the front, which is kind of crazy to me. So it's just things like that I was able to learn. But here was the other thing that I realized when I started putting up food for this year. And it was like the thing, like I was sure I'd worked through all of my zucchini from 2023 that I had put up. And then when I started putting up the zucchini from this year, I realized, wait a minute, I did have one more jar. That means I had enough zucchini and green beans and tomatoes to get me through not just all of 2024 and 2025, but to get me through at least 3 or 4 years, because I had already been practicing putting up as much as I could of the things I used a lot of. And so that was a really good lesson. It made me be able to test, what do I really have? How much do I need to put up? And how far can that take me? If maybe it's not even just about giving your land a rest. Maybe you have no choice. Maybe this next year you just can't put in a garden. Maybe you're going to be moving, or you have to move. Maybe you've come down with some serious illness and you're just not able to do it. So when you learn to be diligent and put up everything that you can in various different forms, of the years that you are bringing in goods, you know that you're going to help be covered for the years that you can't. And that was a real blessing to learn that as well. And it gives me that encouragement to just keep doing what I'm doing, keep putting the things up the way I've been putting them up, so that I can always have plenty, but still also have plenty to give away and help others as well, and to get us through the tough years. So the question may be, will I be doing this again? Yes, I will, because I feel this is a continual learning process, and I want to see what's going to happen another 7 years from now, and to be better prepared and have a better mindset and keep learning the best ways to put in my garden to get the best production out of my garden. by resting the land, by being diligent, by planting things in the best places and in the best ways, that they're going to have a good yield from year to year. So anyway, that was just me sharing my experience of what I tried, and hoping that might give people some ideas and suggestions if they're considering trying different ways to either rest their, especially in small areas. Should I do this? Well, just prepare yourself. And yes, I think you should, because I think it's a good lesson to learn no matter where you are, no matter where you are in your spiritual walk, or even if you just don't believe at all. I think it's a good practice to get into, because it is a good rest for the land. And the other thing I remember just now that I was going to say, it's a good rest for you too, because of all the years that it found out I was going to need a break from doing all that extra work at that time, was the year that Patrick lost his father, and there was so much involved there, and it was such a stressful and hard, difficult time, and plus other things going on, that I was just realized thinking, man, this was the perfect year to not have to worry about my garden. And then this year, coming back with just so much more enthusiasm and excitement at getting going. And so that rest is also good for you as well, not just for your garden areas. Anyway, please share your thoughts and ideas in comments down below. And I will add this: I do not want this to turn into any kind of biblical or religious debate. And anyone who tries to do that is most likely your comment will get deleted. That's not what this is about. It's supposed to be encouraging and thought-provoking, and just give some people some ideas to consider trying for themselves. Nothing more than that. But I do definitely want people to share their own testimonies, be it that maybe you do a crop rotation, or you rest every 4 years, or maybe every 7 years. Just share with us what you do, what seems to work really great for you, and what you've learned from that, so that we can be encouraged in our own journey as we work towards growing and always trying something new and learning as we go. No matter how many years we've been doing this, there's always something new to learn. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.